We've saved a seat just for you. There's always room at the table. It's Coffee with the Pastor with your host, Andy McDaniel.
Welcome everybody to Coffee with the Pastor. As always, it is so glad to be together today and be able to join you and share this hour of conversation together. I am your host, Pastor Andy McDaniel. I am blessed in more ways than one, but in my time of service right now, I am blessed as senior pastor of West Fayetteville Baptist Church right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We're excited about what God is doing at our church. And I want to personally invite you, come by for a visit. Come by and check us out. Come by and just say hello. We're available there, of course, any given Sunday. Our small group studies start at 9:15 a.m. on Sunday morning. Our main service is at 10:30. We also meet midweek at 6:30 on Wednesday, and we have different things in between, and we have a variation of things available for all ages. We're located at 2465 Gillis Hill Road, again, here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. You can follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all those different platforms. And you can also join us on our website at WFAYBC for all the details that you need about the ministry that we've got going on at West Fayetteville Baptist. And I look forward to meeting you, hopefully, one day in the near future. Well, as always, we're glad to have new guests here with us at Coffee with the Pastor. And today, we're excited to welcome Jamie Rich. He serves as the recovery pastor over at Arran Lake Baptist Church. Welcome, brother.
Hey, welcome, man. I'm glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us today. Well, Pastor, we're glad to have you join us here at Coffee with the Pastor. And we always have our brand new guest that people we haven't had a chance to meet yet. Take just a few moments and just share a little bit about your journey, about your ministry that you serve in. And so take a little time and let our audience know a little bit more about Jamie Rich.
All right. So like I said, my name's Jamie Rich. I was born and raised right here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Got into drugs and alcohol at a young age. I was always overweight, picked on, made fun of in school, and never could find my place. And it wasn't until high school where I found my place, and it just happened to be with the guys that like to party. And so it was real easy to fall into that lifestyle, and it led to a life of destruction for many years to come. I found myself when I was 32 years old in my car alone, ready to just drive into a tree wide open and kill myself.
Wow.
And realized at that point that something had to change. And it did. The very next morning, my wife, at the time we were separated, she was going to church at Arran Lakes, and she said, come up to the church and talk to one of the pastors. And I did. I shared my story with him. He shared the gospel with me, and life's been flipped upside down ever since.
Wow.
I also get the privilege of serving as the recovery pastor at Arran Lakes. I was with the ministry called Celebrate Recovery for 15 years. We did that ministry. We just changed this January to a new program called Recovery Live, both which are Christ-centered 12-step programs with biblical principles behind them. Just really, really love pouring into hurting people's lives. Wow. I get asked a lot, man, why, if you've been clean and sober for 20 years and been doing recovery for 15, why in the world are you still doing it? I do it because, man, I love to pour back into people's lives.
Absolutely.
And if I'm in somebody else's business, I ain't got much time to be in my own and make a mess of it. So.
This is true. Well, I love that, and hearing your heart about that. As I've been asked many times over the years, are you going to preach anything but salvation? And I'm like, well, is everybody saved yet? And you're right there. I mean, it's recovery and the struggle with addiction. Not to be cliche, but the struggle's real.
Yes.
I mean, as you obviously have just shared, having some personal, understanding of that, and having walked down that road and seeing the tragedy and the damage of that, not just to yourself, but to those around you that love you and care about you. They don't want to see people in that. And as we are blessed and have the opportunity to be rescued from that and be saved from that, to pour back into the lives of others, I believe, is the call of God on our lives. When we, again, it's almost like, the line from the song Amazing Grace, I was lost, but now I'm found. Yep. Well, now it's my turn to help somebody else. And when we think about it in that respect, I worked prior to this, and I've shared this many times here on Coffee with the Pastor. Of course, many people know my story that I was in law enforcement for 13 years prior to coming into the ministry. And so while I don't have a personal testimony of struggling with alcohol and drugs from a personal perspective, but I worked on the other side of it, and I saw the utter destruction that it brought to people's lives.
Yep.
And to be able to speak life back into someone that is struggling, because again, whatever got them there, whether it was peer pressure, whether it was just life was overwhelming, temptation, what it could be, it's not the why.
Yep.
We can waste all day long, we can talk all day long, we can use all of our time on the why. We need to talk about the now. That's and right. The how, and where do we get from there? Because again, as a recovering person, you understand this. Until you reach that run in the tree moment, until you reach that it's over moment, you really can't get the help that you need, because you really don't accept the fact that you need it.
Yeah, that's true.
And and that's why even from the walk of faith, coming to Christ perspective, oftentimes the world gets kind of incensed or upset about the idea of being told where you're lost.
Yeah.
Well, somebody might argue that. Well, I know where I'm at, but the rebuttal is, well, do you know where you're going?
That's it.
And so understanding that principle is vital. And so I thank you for sharing that. And, I've done this now for a long, long time, and sadly, I think we see. Even within the confines sometimes of the church, we see disharmony and jealousy and division and all those kind of things. And we see that ugliness of the world sometimes creeping in because we don't understand someone's journey.
Yeah.
I just had someone just within the last couple of days of our time recording this ask me if I had always served Jesus my whole life. And my honest answer was no, because that would be dishonest.
Yeah.
I was in my early 30s when I came into the ministry, and so prior to that, I didn't get saved until I was 28 years old. And even after that, I would say it still took me a good 2 or 3 years or more to even understand what I had really signed up for.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I knew there was something different, but I didn't know that I really understood it. I didn't have anybody to walk with me and disciple me and all the other things that we hear about. And so when we think about how easy it is for that kind of stuff to come in, it really is a joy to hear your story and your work and your ministry of pouring into the lives of others. That's a blessing, and I know that has to be a blessing to the ministry of your church as well, that they see the value of lives because Jesus said, I came to seek and to save the lost.
Yeah, that's right.
And I don't know, we can do the comparative test of who's more lost than not, but that person that is lost in addiction, they don't see a way out.
Yeah.
And so as we're speaking into that, and we look at understanding speaking life into others, oftentimes I teach, and I'm sure that you do too as part of the recovery, the personal nature of our walk with Christ. Because again, when we're looking for answers, we oftentimes kind of find them all over the place. It's like going on Google. You type in something and you get 10 million answers. Yeah. But there may only be one that's actually right.
Yeah.
One that's actually right. So as we think about the personal nature of that, again, not merely just saying a few words or different things, and just going on about life, but a true commitment. Because as you're talking about recovery, that's a commitment. When you agree?
Absolutely.
It's not just I'm not going to do that anymore. Empty promises happen all the time. We're just coming out of January where resolutions are made and they're already over.
Yeah, already broken.
Yeah, So when we think about true commitment, for everyone that is listening today, wherever they may be, maybe we have someone today that is struggling with exactly what we're talking about. Pastor, how do we help others to see the immeasurable importance, and I mean that, immeasurable importance of truly getting to know Jesus and not just know about Jesus.
Right. So I think for a long, long time in many churches that we've done a great job in leading people to the Lord, leading people to salvation, but I think we've done a horrible job. Not all churches, but a lot, including ours at one point, didn't do such a good job at discipleship.
Yeah.
I was one of the fortunate ones. When I got saved and baptized and joined the church, I had a group of men that just come up underneath me and picked me up and walked me down the path and showed me, discipled me, taught me. And man, I was so blessed to have that in my life, because I've watched some of the other guys that come through, accept Christ, profess that faith in Christ, and then you never see them again, or you hear they're back on the streets doing their thing or whatever. So discipleship, I think, would have to be a huge importance. I know at our church, we do what's called D groups, discipleship groups. Mm-hmm. Basically, they're the same thing as what we do in recovery. Mm-hmm. We just call it something different. We call it process groups.
Okay.
The D group is more on the spiritual side for a Christian to further his walk, and the process group is more the emotional side. Because let's face it, man, we're in recovery. We've hurt. We're trying to stop drinking, but we got a lot of other baggage that we're carrying along with us. And if I could just say, recovery isn't just for drug addicts and alcoholics, man. We've all got some issue in life: depression, anxiety, pornography, whatever it is. All the sins that are out there, man. Everybody needs discipleship, and I think everybody needs recovery to some point.
Absolutely.
Whatever that looks like for that individual.
Well, I think that the struggle for some, and I'm sure you've seen this, and maybe you could even speak into this a little bit from a personal perspective. I think for some, the biggest hindrance sometimes to the recovery is the shame.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of people, because again, many people, when they hear the word addict, they instantly think of drugs and alcohol. Yep. Now, while they probably maybe are at the top of the list, just because of a social thing, because that's kind of the stigma that's there. The person that drinks too much, takes too much pills, or smokes too much, or whatever. But you're right in what you've mentioned, in that there's so much more. Yeah. I mean, the person that's morbidly obese is addicted to food. They literally can't stop.
Right.
They've got some kind of thing there that drives them. And that's not to demean them or talk bad about them. That's just true. Yeah. But the person that's addicted to pornography, or the person that's addicted to whatever, it could be anything. And it's a very easy road to go down, because it's enticing. Yeah. And if we go back and understand how that comes about from what we learn from Scripture, we see in the garden, it said that the forbidden fruit, the temptation, that it was pleasurable to the eye. In other words, it looked good. And what do we tell ourselves? If it looks good, it must be good. It must be okay. How could it be wrong? How could it harm me? But it only takes that first drink. It only takes that first snort, or that first picture, that first image, to draw you in, because it does look good. We're being real here. We're having a real conversation, and that person that's listening to say, I never really thought about that. Because again, and I love what you said about the two differences between the process and the recovery aspect of it. There's two different roads there, or the discipleship. Because the truth be told, is the person that is just getting going, they may not be ready for the other. Yeah. You can be overwhelmed, and so speak about that. I mean, when we think about you're just coming in, maybe we have someone listening that's just really wrestling with letting something go, and you're just getting in, but you're hesitant to go because you think you're going to be overwhelmed by anything. What does that journey look like as one's getting started?
So we try to make it on Monday nights as comfortable as we can, as pleasing to the eyes as we can, because I know how intimidating it can be just to walk in the door here for the first time, to do this with you for the first time. Scared out of my mind. So I can only imagine what the newcomer feels like that's coming to a recovery process, no matter what they're there for, to step out of that denial, to drop that pride, and to take that first step to admit that their life is just not all together. And it can be scary sometimes. So we do that with, we start off with food. We have full meals every single Monday night. We feed everyone for free, and it's good. I'm talking home cooked, good meals. Good plug out for Kinlaw's grocery store. They donate all the food twice a week for us.
Beautiful.
Just some awesome people down there. But that's just a time, more important than the food, is time of fellowship before we start getting serious. And then after that, we ease right into our large group. We call it a service. Actually, the church sometimes calls it the Monday night service, because we don't do a Sunday night service.
Okay.
And we just walk through that process of teaching about the biblical principles, or the next week maybe a testimony. And then we break into our small gender-specific groups. So we try to make it easy there so people aren't intimidated going into a large group to start sharing what's on their heart. And then we end that with just some hangout time, fellowship again, and then be on our way.
Well, I think for a comforting purpose, for someone to realize I'm not the only one, that is a pivotal thing. That is so important, because I think just listening to what you were saying, it really transcends to even the salvation experience itself. Many people may be in a church service, or maybe, whatever, a tent meeting, wherever it is that they came to know the Lord. But prior to that, or maybe there's someone listening to now that has said, I've heard all this different stuff, but I'm embarrassed. I don't want anybody to think, I'm lost, or I didn't have, my heart right, or this. And so sometimes that shame, or that embarrassment, or that it causes a hesitancy to stop someone from asking for the help that they need. Yep. Whether it is a recovery situation, or whether it is just I'm spiritually on the opposite end of everything in my life, and I can't figure it out. And that's why, Jeremiah 33:3 says, "Call unto me, and I will answer you." Right. And I'm doing a study on that, and it just, that verse is just so fresh in my mind, and I want someone to hear that today. And we're going to talk a little bit more about all of this when we come back from our break coming up here shortly. That initial step, that admission, that confessing with my mouth, type thing that says, I need help. I can't do this. Would you say that might be the hardest step?
I believe so. For a lot of people, it's not easy to admit that you're powerless, and that's the first step, admitting that you are powerless. We can't do this thing on our own. Me and my senior pastor just did a series at our church called "I Can't, He Can. I Think I'll Let Him," it was just a beautiful series. And one of the ones I did, I talked to about 3 different people in the church. Those people, and those people. Because we're all those people. We classify ourselves as we're one of those people. That's a saying we have. Meaning we're in recovery, and we're saved by Jesus Christ, and we're not ashamed to admit it. So, and then I just pointed to those different 3 people. And those 3 different people in the church are those who are saved, who are living right, and they're on the mountaintop. Those who are saved, but they're just bench warmers, they don't do anything. And then those people that are in the church that are lost. And I sort of dived in on all 3 of those and brought them all together to show that it takes the whole body of Christ to make a difference in the world. So.
Oh, without a question, and understanding that is so important. Because tradition and rituals and just overt religion is honestly, and again, some people may agree or disagree, but it for many people it's a turnoff because they perceive I can't fit into that.
Yep.
I look different. or I've lived different, or all these different things. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the person that asked me if I had, served the Lord all my life, and the answer is no. And the response to that was instant rejection. Yep. Now here I am, 54 years old. I've been serving the Lord faithfully for 23 years, and doing everything, and yet still I was just rejected by someone else that claims to be doing the same thing. And so we see the importance of that, and the rejection and the stigma that comes sometimes. It's been painted. It keeps people away from the resource of help that they need. So we're going to pick back up on that when we come back from our break. And what a great conversation we're having so far. Jamie Rich is joining us today as a recovery pastor from Arran Lake Baptist, and we're excited about where this conversation is going to go. We'll be right back with more Coffee with the Pastor. Welcome back, everybody, to Coffee with the Pastor. We are having a great conversation today. This is a subject that we've not touched here on Coffee with the Pastor so far, and so it's welcomed because Jamie and I were just talking off the air the reality of this issue, and it is very, very real. And it, I would say, has affected probably every person in the world, whether directly or indirectly through a family member or a friend.
Oh, absolutely.
We've all been affected by just the drudgery of addiction. Again, and that is multifaceted. We're not just strictly dialing in on the drug and alcohol people that struggle with that, but every level of addiction. Some people are addicted to power. Yeah. We see that in a lot of times in our current structures of leadership, that a person that is so desirous of power, they'll do anything to get it. Yeah. Even hurting other people or lying, cheating, stealing, whatever. And so reaching into those lives and discussing it from a very ground level place, I think, is vital. And something you said as we were coming back on, not being perceived as the stuck-up church, stuck-up Christians, I got Jesus and you don't, yeah. I'm better than you. That's the worst thing on earth that we could do. And absolutely. a lot of people are turned away by that. Or a lot of people, I would say, they get confused because the concept and the understanding of Jesus is that he loves us. Mm-hmm. But oftentimes, and this is a sad statement, but oftentimes those who claim him don't always show him.
That's right.
And so being the hands and feet of Jesus, reaching into the community wherever the need is. Well, that's what he did. He right. met people where the woman at the well and so on. So he met people in their need. So when we're talking and talking about those that maybe are struggling with coming forward and talking and understanding their needs, sometimes they perceive that as difficult. Again, I don't fit in. I'm not sure I'd be welcomed. I mean, we've had Pastor JD2 here before from the Freedom Biker mm-hmm. Church, and he talked about how their foundation was basically built out of the concept that those guys didn't feel welcomed at places, And I grew up in a very racially divided Deep South community to where I've seen, and it's a sad statement, but I mean, I've seen folks be told you can't come here. That is not Jesus. No. And so meeting people, whether it's like you said at a treatment facility, or whether it's meeting them in your church parking lot or in your sanctuary or in the bar. JD was talking about going down and meeting people right there at the thing. When we talk about that, is real, and that speaks volumes because again, I know there was a big controversy during the Super Bowl, and the big controversy about the Jesus commercial. Well, I've tried to assess that. In fact, I was just doing another broadcast with another guy, and we were talking about that. And I think the part that was left out is God does love you right where you are. That is absolutely a fact. The part that was left out, and it would have been more beneficial rather than leave it kind of open-ended like that, would be to add to it, but he loves you too much to leave you there. Yep. And as we're speaking into the lives of those that maybe struggle with the power of addiction and the things that brings, I want them to understand that He does love you right where you are.
Yep.
I mean, you may be loaded right now, or don't even know your name, and He loves you, but He loves you too much to leave you there.
Yeah.
And this ministry and this work that you guys are doing is commendable. And I want to speak about that as we're looking at that one that is struggling with coming forward, that one that is saying, I'm embarrassed, or I'm ashamed, or I'm struggling, or I don't understand the things about faith and reading the Bible and all those. It doesn't make any sense to me. Oftentimes, what I want people to understand is it's just like you were talking about the two-step kind of, getting you in and then getting you on the road. That's what relationships are about,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that is what, when we see one, just like myself and maybe yourself, when I first came to know Jesus, I accepted what was shared with me, but I still didn't know Him. It would be quite a while before I would actually get to know Him. And that's the point of the relationship, because when we have a relationship with Jesus, it clears the clouds.
Oh, yeah.
It really does. And so once we begin to see through the fog, we can see the road, and then we can start making progress. So how do we encourage one today that is listening, Pastor Jamie? How do we encourage one that is seeking answers? How do we encourage one that is seeking wisdom and counsel as they are pursuing the things of God? In particular, reading Scripture and on. So how do we help them get to know the author and the finisher of our faith?
Well, I think our God, our Lord Jesus Christ, He's a merciful God. He's a loving God. He's a caring God. Some of us that's coming out of our struggles think God is mad at us, or God hates us or despises us. Man, that could be so far from the truth.
Lord, yeah.
I just did a funeral Sunday, and I touched on this about, excuse me, mine went blank, about where, let me get my thought together.
I have a lot of those moments.
Yeah, and I'm having a bad one right now. Good gracious. Ask your question again. I'm going to think about what my thought.
Well, as we're trying to encourage one that is trying to, they're battling within themselves about how do I reach into this, and how do I understand what is walking with Jesus? What does that even mean? How am I prepared for that? How do I read the Bible and understand it? Well, I tell people all the time, you got to know the author. That's where it changes things, because then it becomes personal.
Yeah.
That's when we begin to see a change. So I want to speak into that.
Yes.
and find a way to, how do we encourage that one that is struggling to find the answers, even though maybe they know the answer, but they feel like it's so far away. It's like you're on the 1 yard line and the end zone is a million miles away. How do we speak into that life?
Yeah, I think sometimes we feel like you just said, that 1 yard line is a million miles away. Sometimes I think we're standing here and we feel like God's a million miles away, and that we can never get close enough to Him. And where I was alluding to earlier about the funeral, I talked about where the prodigal son left, took his inheritance and left. The other son stayed there, did the right thing, helped take care of his father, helped take care of the farm. And the son goes off and squanders every dime he had, and finds himself eating with the pigs, and then realizes that, hey, my father's servants has plenty of extra food. I can go there and get me some. So as he was coming, and I've read this story a dozen times, and it really hit me different, is as he was coming, it says the father was waiting.
Yes.
The father was, if he was waiting, and from a far distance, he saw his son. So he was intentionally looking for his son. Mm-hmm. And then his son, as he comes, the father begins to run to the son.
Yes, he does.
The son doesn't run to the father. And then you see this beautiful picture as they're running together. And then all of a sudden, the father stops and he tells his son, "Hold on, son." And he reaches down, and there's this puddle, there's a bucket of water, and he throws it on his son, and he washes his hair, gets all the mud and grit and the pig slop off of it. No, that's not what the father did.
Yeah.
The father immediately hugged his son and kissed him. dirty, filthy, nasty, scummy and all. And that's how he wants to accept us when we come to him.
I love that.
We cannot get ourselves clean enough to come to the Father, come to him as we are. And then what really gets me is, as he told his servant to go get his robe, the best robe.
Yeah, the finest.
The one he kept in his closet that he didn't even put on for dinner because he was scared he might get a little bit of ketchup on it. That robe.
That's right.
That's that robe he put on his filthy, nasty son and clothed him.
Yes, he did.
And a ring and sandals. And then he walked him back to his palace down the main street, arm in arm, because he was proud
Yes, he was.
of his son.
My son that was
And that's
dead
how
is
I see Jesus today. That's not how I always seen Jesus. No. And I think that's how a lot of people see Jesus today, and they're scared to take that next step, to come to church, to come to recovery, because they've been told so many times by Christians that you can't, you won't fit in here, you need to go somewhere else, you need to get your life together. And don't buy in all that. If you're out there, man, and you're lost and you're struggling and you're floundering around like a fish out of water, man, come to Andy's church, come to our church, come to Recovery Life, come somewhere where you can hear the gospel of Christ and you can get discipled and you can get poured into.
Amen. Oh man, that was so powerful, Brother Jamie. As a pastor, it breaks my heart. And if I'm really being transparent, sometimes it angers me of the stigma that so many people have put on others, and even worse, that have put on Jesus. That well, you're not this or that. I remember myself when I first felt a powerful call of God to do this work that I do now for all these years, and I remember sitting at a desk, much like this one that we're recording at, talking to my pastor at the time, and having no idea, what I'm signing up for, walking into, or anything like that. But I shared my heart with him, and I mean passionately shared my heart with him that God was really working and dealing in my life about going into ministry. And I'll never forget. I mean, like I said, I'm 54, and I'll never forget that response when he looked at me. He says, "Man, that's great, but you can't do it." And my heart sunk because I thought somehow I wasn't worthy. Somehow I was a useless vessel. And so I said, what do you mean I can't do it? He said, well, you made too many mistakes in your life, and you've had, you didn't live for the Lord, and you had too many girlfriends and too many this and too many that, and I was crushed because I said, well, according to Scripture, God has forgiven me of everything I've asked him to do and made me whole. Paul says I'm a new creation, and I get to start over. And to be told, well, yeah, but that doesn't work for you. I want someone to hear what Jamie just shared. If you just got out of the hog pen, which and that story is the greatest illustration of the love of God.
Yeah.
We hear John 3:16 and the power of the action of the love of God in that he sent Jesus. But we see the illustrative nature of the love of God in the story of the prodigal son, because it is in that God is speaking to every one of us. Because one of the things that really, really jumps out in that story to me is as this young man has squandered and thrown away and everything that we talked about, his father, as he gave him that inheritance, he probably already knew he wasn't going to do too hot with it. That's called free will. God says, here's life. He remembers that you're mere dust and you're probably going to blow it. But he let him go anyhow. Yeah. Because God loves us enough to let us be us. Mm-hmm. Because if he violated that, we would be robotic. We wouldn't have any kind of perception of, well, I can't do that because I'm not allowed to. And so, but in that story, he goes out. It says he lives lavishly. He's chasing women. He's doing this, doing that, whatever. He loses everything. Now he finds himself in squalor. He's working in the hog pen. He's in the hog pen, in the worst place at all. And if you've ever seen one of those places, they're pretty gross. Oh, yeah. They're pretty gross. And so he's in that, even desirous to eat of the slop because he's so hungry and he's in such a terrible condition. And then it says he looked up and he said, I will go to my father. I lead people to that oftentimes and say, that's God. He's saying, come home.
Yeah.
come back to me. And what you just said was so incredible, because as he's coming down the road, you're right. He didn't stop him. He didn't say, well, let me tell you about all that you did wrong. He already knew.
Yeah.
He didn't, because he knew that reminding him of that, it wasn't going to fix anything. And so the person that is struggling, well, you're a drunk, or you're a dopehead, or you're a this, you're that, you're loose. Well, that don't help anybody. No. They already know that. God already knows that. The woman at the well, and we've used that story many, many times here at Coffee with the Pastor, but it's so well done and so well worth repeating. Jesus tells her, I already know you've had 5 husbands. And the guy you're with now, he's not your husband. Mm-hmm. You're just staying there doing whatever. He spoke into her life, but he didn't call her a tramp. He didn't say you've made too many mistakes. He didn't say, well, you've been divorced or you're not welcome. He didn't do that. That's religion that does that. Yeah. That's tradition and rituals and man-made nonsense. That is not Jesus. And so the power of what we're speaking here today, friends, I believe that we're speaking into a life today, because the ability for God to reach you wherever you are is unlimited.
That's right.
God says again, call unto me. If we go back in that passage from Jeremiah 33, we go back to verse 1, and it says that Jeremiah was confined. He was in a situation that he couldn't get out of, and he was trying to process what is next. What is the answer? And then it says the word of the Lord came to him for the second time. Sometimes we get the answer, we reject the answer. So we've given the invitation, the offering, come to recovery, come to one of our services, what have you. But there's someone out there saying, well, but I don't know how to do that. Or I wouldn't fit in, or I wouldn't be welcome. We see so many what I like to call alternatives today that are available, especially when it comes to gatherings. Okay, in particular, church services and studies and what have you. Now we have streamings and we have replays and podcasts and television. I had someone the other day, I just watch church on TV. How do we help one see today, Pastor, as we prepare for this second segment to come to an end? How do we help one prepare and to understand the value of in-person fellowship?
I think it's highly important. All the online streaming stuff is needed. We do it at Recovery Live. We stream. We do too. And we do that for the people that are homebound and can't get out, or maybe out of town and needs a meeting. But man, that in person is where the relationships are built together. That's where the trust is built with one another. That's where the camaraderie is coming into play. And that's where I think Jesus can really show off, because he uses other people, other brothers and sisters, to speak into us as well, not just a pastor. Absolutely. On Sunday morning during a service. So in-person meetings, I think they're just highly, highly important in every way.
Well, the value of knowing that you're not alone. There's something about that it kind of eases the struggle, the guilt, the shame, the whatever of, other people deal with that too. Because again, we tend to want to stuff that in a closet and think, well, I'm the only one. Nobody struggles with this but me. But there is somebody out there that's dealing with it, because we all are. This old brain that we've got, it can come up and conjure up all kinds of crazy stuff,
Absolutely.
And the thing is, if we are allowing, and we sometimes lower our bar and we lower our hedge of protection, because we determine, well, I've got it. This can't get me, I've got a grip on this, until you realize it's actually got a grip on you. Because again, I've seen, just like the and again, everybody's got their own thing, but just like the chain smoker. I remember sitting and talking to someone one day that they had a serious problem with that. They're the second they put one out, they're grabbing another one. It had them. I mean, they couldn't even sit in a normal service time or a concert or anything. That constantly having to go to the door. Constantly, Again, that's what That's what addiction does. It controls you. It tricks you, deceives you to believe you got to have this, you need this. When actually we don't. Yeah. We need Jesus. And that's why he says you'll know the truth, and the truth will make you free. The truth will set you free. But even then we have to understand that is only the opportunity. It is just like inviting someone to come to recovery or inviting someone to come to know the Lord. That is the opportunity. The action now is on you. You have to be the one to say, I need that help. And so we need to encourage one another and build each other up. And being able to do that in person, it has such a profound effect. There's something about that environment. There's something about that, again, but it goes back to making sure that environment actually reflects the image of God. Yeah. We go back to the fruit of the Spirit and we see love, joy, peace, forgiveness, kindness, patience, all those different things. Those are the reflective nature of God. Yeah. And not only are they reflective, they are visible. You can see whether it's there or whether it's not. If you walk into a room with a bunch of stiff-necked people that, look down their nose at you because, you don't have on a coat and tie, or you didn't comb your hair, or like me, you don't have any, or whatever, that says to that person that is wrestling with whether it's a faith question or an acceptance question or whatever, well, I was right. I am stuck right where I'm at, and there is no answer. And nothing could be further from the truth. And while some sadly have displayed that and some have shown that, what we're trying to get you to understand today is that is not reflective of everywhere. And so we're going to take our second break. We'll be right back with more Coffee with the Pastor. Welcome back, everybody, to Coffee with the Pastor. We are just having a phenomenal conversation here today, friends. I really, honestly, as we were preparing for the show, sometimes as we sit down to have these conversations, we never really fully know the direction they're going to go. So I really like to let the Lord lead that, just as I do when I'm teaching and what have you. But this conversation has really taken a tremendous turn in such a valuable direction. Many people around us, Jamie, they look for encouragement. They need counsel and they need friendship. They need emotional support. We were just talking off air, and let's bring that conversation back to our audience. What can we do? What can we do as the church? And when we look at the church, not just our physical building, not just our name on the door, but the church at large, the church as the body universal, what can we do to help develop a culture and a vision of togetherness? We've got to start drawing people back together, because the first church, if we study in the book of Acts, it allowed others to see. That was visible. The one accord thing was not a secret meeting. Everybody saw it. And Jesus was their core. He was their center. He was what kept it all together. He was kind of the glue. How do we help others to see that this can still exist, that in-person fellowship, accountability, encouragement, all that stuff, it does matter?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm reminded of the story where Nazareth dies, and the sisters call for Jesus, and he waits 4 days to come, and when he comes, the ladies are like, Jesus, why'd you wait so long? He's dead. And so Jesus said, watch this. I think that was a sort of a test. But what I really want to talk about there is when Jesus calls him out of the tomb, he simply says, Lazarus come out. And Lazarus comes out. He's free. He's alive. But he's still bound. His hands are tied. His feet are tied. So why didn't Jesus take the bondages off his hands? Because his family was there, his friends were there to help loosen those grips, take off those ropes. And that's what we are called to do as a church family, is when people come in and they get radically saved and they accept Christ. Life isn't going to be perfect. Let's face it, man. You really tick the devil off when you say yes to Jesus, because he had you, now he don't. He wants you back, and he's going to try everything he can do to get you, and he's going to fail miserably, but he's going to try. So yeah, we're not. Some of us, I know immediately. I never have taken another drink or another drug in 20 years since yesterday.
Awesome.
Made 20 years. But that's not the case for everybody, and I still have my own struggles that I've worked over the years that didn't miraculously disappear. So my thing is, just like Lazarus' family and friends had to untie him and take those grips off him, we need to be there for our people to take those chains off them as well when Jesus raises them up from.
That is outstanding, because that story does. He called him out by name. And then he said, "No, you go loose him." That is such a beautiful thing, encouragement and lifting each other up. That one that is out there today that is really struggling with what we're talking about, because it is uncomfortable. Whether you're the one in it or you're the one watching a loved one go through it, none of it's easy. But if we would understand what was just said, that God has given us the freedom through Christ, and understanding the love that He's given to us, that we have the call to go and help others remove that bondage that's in their life. Because the hands and feet and everything of Jesus, that's us. We're called to be the light. We're called to be the salt of the earth. A dear friend of mine, Pastor Dan Erickson out of Missouri, he's passed on and gone to know the Lord, or going to be with the Lord. But his ministry, he used to always say, "Go be Jesus with skin on." Yeah. Let people see Him in you, and when we think about that, oftentimes it is this surrounding that we're in that doesn't allow us to be completely free, because we feel like we're not welcomed, or the stigma of my past, or this, that. But don't let your past predict your future, man. I mean, it doesn't own that. It's been defeated. Jesus took it and nailed it to the cross. Yeah. You can leave it there, again, and we've said this here many, many times, but the windshield is bigger than the rearview mirror. That's right. Keep looking forward, man. That is so valuable. And being able to walk away, leave the bondage of addiction in the rearview mirror 20 years ago or 20 minutes ago. We want you to know you can do this. Yeah. You can beat this demon. The authority of Jesus says so. I was just recently teaching from the book of Mark, and it said that Jesus was teaching, and one with an unclean spirit, one with a demon, spoke out against him, and he said, "Get out." That's the authority of Jesus. He's saying that today. That walk, that recovery. When we think about recovery, okay, let's equate that to, you've just had a major back surgery. I had back surgery many years ago. Recovery, that's a daily process. Yeah. You didn't come off that operating table and run down the hallway, and cut a flip. Yeah. You've got to build that muscle back. You've got to get there. Recovery is the same thing. You've broken your spirit. You've broken your whatever, and getting back to being able to be you, and being able to feel like you can engage in personal fellowship and on. So that is a process. And so I'm so excited that we could offer this to everyone listening today. I absolutely love what we do here at Coffee with the Pastor. It is vital, not only to our community here locally in Fayetteville, but as we're able and blessed with the opportunity to share this all over, technically the world, through podcast, that people could hear this. And you may be in California today, and you might not be able to come to Jamie's church or my church, but find somewhere that loves Jesus. And I mean loves Jesus, because they're going to love you. That's right. And they're going to help you change your life, because God loves you without a question, and it is right where you are. But He loves you too much to leave you there. You can do this. You can absolutely beat this. I pray with all my heart that you were encouraged by what we've done today. Over the last several weeks, I've had many people reach out, many people comment and say things about what we're doing here at Coffee with the Pastor, and I thank you for those encouraging words that what we're doing matters and what we're doing is making a difference. I want to thank Pastor Jamie Rich for being with us today, and I want you to take just a minute and let everybody know how they can find more out about Arran Lake, maybe some website service times, all those kind of things. Tell everybody again about your recovery meeting, and just share with them how they can come and see you guys.
Okay. So Arran Lake Baptist Church is located at 1130 Bingham Drive, Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's just right off of Rayford Road. Our service times are at 9:30. We have a more traditional service with choir and orchestra, and then at 11:11 in our Family Life Center, directly behind the main church, we have our more contemporary service with praise and worship band. So those are the two service times. You can go online to b3church.org or just Google B3 Church, and that will take you to the website. You can find all the other activities that we have going on throughout the week. As far as the Recovery Alive that I head up or help head up, we meet every single Monday night, rain, sleet, or snow, if we ever get any. Even on Christmas Day, we're going to be there if it falls on a Monday. We start at 5:30. We have a full-blown dinner, followed by at 6:30 is our worship time, and then at 7:30 we have our Gender Pacific small groups, and that's every week. And
that's outstanding. That's outstanding. Well, folks, I mean, if you're on that side of town and certainly feel led to go and worship with Arran Lake, I know you'll be blessed. Not a question about that. If you are listening today and you are struggling with addiction, or you know someone that is struggling with addiction, help is available. You don't have to bear this burden alone. You don't, and you can reach out. And I know that you can contact us here through the station. You can reach out directly at the churches that we have, because we care. We're not just here to do a radio show or just to, have people hear us talk about. This is serious. And, as I said earlier in the program, I personally never had to battle that, although I had my own struggles of things that I was wrestling with. They weren't drugs and alcohol, but certainly other things. But regardless of whatever you feel like has a power or a grasp or a hold on you, or back where I grew up down in the deep south, that hoped on you. I don't know that that's actually a real word, but it sounds good. But whatever you're wrestling with today, there's an answer. First and foremost, that answer is Jesus,
That's
period. Right. And that is not to give you the preacher answer or the church answer. That is the factual answer, because Jesus has all authority given unto him on heaven and in earth. And when we understand that, he is the one that we can lean on. When we understand that he's the one that we can count on, that will not fail us. And the one thing about the inconsistency of the world, we turn to the book of Malachi, and God says, I am the Lord and I don't change. Mm-hmm. So he is the one consistent thing. So hold on to that unchanging hand of God. Allow him to lead and guide and direct your life. And if you're struggling for answers today, maybe you're not wrestling with addiction, but maybe you're wrestling with your spiritual condition, and you're saying, I know that I need to do something. I know there's a better answer than what I'm doing, because I've been trying to fix it all myself and it's not working. God says, again, we're going back to Jeremiah, call out to me and I will answer you. And I will show you things that are immeasurable, incomprehensible, things that you cannot learn on your own. I will show you. I will make your life better. Friends, I hope we've been a blessing to you today. I want to thank our guest again for being here. It's always a blessing to have all of our guests, and just thank you for sharing your heart with us today.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
What a great time it has been to be able to just speak into life. I think sometimes we can get, even in ministry, we can get caught up in what we're doing as far as Sunday morning, Wednesday night, Sunday night, whatever, Bible studies and teaching and sermons and stuff. And there's tremendous value in all of those. Is what I try to focus on over at West Fayetteville is our relationship with Christ. We call ourselves, and again, not to be prideful or arrogant or whatever, but we are a Christ-centered ministry. And people may think, well, that sounds strange. All churches should be. Well, that's the pivotal word, should be. But we are, and we proudly share that, because everything that we teach and do points someone to Christ. And not just join the church, not just get baptized, not just say the prayer. Those are so on the fringe of what we try to accomplish, because I want people to know Jesus in the way that I do. And that is so valuable, because we talk about, people struggling with addiction, which I think equates to still, in many ways, equates to being lost. Because I don't know where I'm at, and I can't get out of here. I don't know which direction to turn, and my GPS is broke.
Sort of like the Bible says, you can't serve two masters.
That's it.
It's the same thing with whatever's holding us back. Let's call it like it is. That's your sin.
It is.
And if my sin is drugs, and that's my master, then there's no room for Jesus, and that's going to keep me held down.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it is. No, it is. It will. It is like a tether or a chain that is holding, whether it's an animal or God forbid, but a person, something in place where you cannot move. You are physically unable to go forward. Jesus said, I came to set you free.
That's right.
And that is free from the bondage of all of those things, and all of those things that keep us from Him. He is our answer. It was said back in the 70s, Jesus is the answer for the world today. That still applies 50 years after that song came out. So again, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It has been such a pleasure, not only to share this hour with Jamie, but to just speak on something that has such a dire impact on our communities, on our homes, on our societies, and that sometimes gets glossed over because, that's just that old, every soul counts.
That's right.
Every soul counts. I want to thank all of our listeners today. We value your time. We pray to always try to fill it with conversations that matter. To all of our fellow pastors, all I can really sum it up in what we said today is focus on Him.
That's right.
Focus on Him, and He will lead you in the way you go. Friends, that's it for us today. I am your host, Pastor Andy McDaniel. This is Coffee with the Pastor, where Jesus is good all the way to the last drop.
You've been listening to Coffee with the Pastor with your host, Andy McDaniel. Connect and learn more when you visit the podcast page at Christian1057.com. And join us each week for Coffee with the Pastor on Christian 105.7.